Deep Thinkers. This is Lori Marie here, and I have a really special guest today. Her name is Lynn K. Russell. She's author of Beyond NDEs, the next step in near-death experience research. And Lynn, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
Good. I've been excited to have you on. You have a plethora of information with your research, and I have an equal amount of questions for you today. I've been studying, the topic a bit here and there. Every time I hear somebody's unique story, it gives my consciousness just that much more of a shift in awareness of what's really going on. And, it's a really interesting topic. It goes right in alignment with Wisdom Beyond Time, which will be a documentary on people who go outside of time and space to get, and receive knowledge and bring it back. And with NDEs, their experience is a little more tragic, unfortunately, at times, because, they don't want to die. I mean, none of us want to die. And so when they come back, not only do they have the story of their experience, and bring back that wisdom, but they have additional wisdom once they start implementing that in their life. So I'm looking forward. Why don't you share with us a little bit about you and maybe how you got into the studies, and let's go from there.
Okay. How I got into it was that as a child I was afraid of dying, and my mother told me that I would just disappear when I died. And that really scared me. I didn't want to disappear. I was 8 years old. And so then I began being very curious about religions and what did they say? Because my mother didn't believe in anything. So I started to, not at 8, but around 16, I started to get interested in researching and studying all kinds of. In those days, it was back in the 1950s. And so in those days, early 50s, by the way, I'm an old lady. And so the only thing that was available in those days was religions. But as time went on and the new way of seeing things in the more spiritual, not religious, came into being, then that's what I started to look into more.
Interesting.
And that's what started it.
And so in what way did you go about I'm sure it began as a curiosity. In what way did you find yourself going about, your search for what happens when you die?
Okay, so what happened after that was I had many, many years, like I can't even 50, 60 years of spiritual research and an interest in science. I have to put that in there too. But what happened with the NDEs was that when I retired, and when I retired, I was going to be an author of a book, and I wanted to research whether my heroine could do what I had her doing. And so I looked it up and found out that I never did find the answer, but I did find myself on NDERF, which stands for Near Death Experience Research Foundation. So I was in a research site, and they had a chat line, and I'm on the chat line, and Dr. Long, who owns the site, said that he was looking for somebody to help him with research for his book, Evidence of the Afterlife. And so I said, yeah, that's great. I'll be right there. So that's what I did.
So you stated offline prior to our interview that your book is written in a different fashion compared to other near-death experience books. And what did you mean by that? Like, how is it that your book is fashioned?
Yeah, it's very different from the point of view that I do talk about near death and what happens and that kind of thing, but I'm concentrate more on the learning the spiritual messages that are coming back from people who have had death experiences, because that was my interest, was try and find truth, whatever that was. And so I
Yeah.
feel that the people who have had death experiences are bringing back volumes of really cool information. And so that's why I got involved. Yeah.
Yeah, this is right up my alley because, as I was telling you, whenever I hear of a story from somebody who has had these experiences, some people multiple times, it literally makes me look at life from new and unique perspectives, and it absolutely helps remove the fear of uncertainty and remove the fear of death, as you had initially went in wondering about. And so there's a lot of commonalities and a lot of differences in each of their stories. So I was wondering, in your research, being that you probably researched several hundreds of different experiences, what were some of the commonalities that you noticed across the board?
Okay, I researched 2,500 near-death experiences, so it was quite a few thousand. In the beginning, I was just interested in what happened when you died, but after that, that's when I started to see deeper messages that were coming back. And the ones that struck me the most are that we create our own death experience, and that's because we are amazing, phenomenal beings, and we don't even know it. Most people dislike themselves. Before I retired, I was a family counselor, and I was amazed at how many people were so down on themselves and really hated themselves, and that really surprised me. And so, but in reality, we're magnificent. We are so beautiful. And we can do way more than we ever thought we could. And we shortchange ourselves. So we need to start accepting, a more positive view of ourselves and challenging ourselves to find out what we can and can't do, and not accepting what other people say. So that's,
Yeah, that's exactly it. We do live in a society like that.
yeah,
If we understood at the core how amazing we are, life would be so different for us.
yeah, for sure. And the other thing that struck me about death experiences was that there's two things. One is that almost universally, people talked about feeling connected to everything, everywhere. If they would go to a garden or place where there's beautiful buildings, or a seaside or a mountain or whatever, wherever they went, they felt connected to everything they saw. If they looked at the universe, they felt connected to every star and planet and whatever else, galaxy and whatever, that they saw. They were connected to it. There was no difference between them. And that was very significant.
Yeah, that explains how, we know on some unconscious level that we are all connected, but because we're here in a state with ego, and a state where, like you said, we're amazing beings, but I think with that,
Yeah,
we have all of these senses, and we have all of these hormones, and we have all of these outside forces that we can feel and sense and ingest and consume. And it makes our multidimensional, limitless self that much more complicated. So it's really hard to remember how amazing we are when we have so much stimuli as humans. Because when you die, you're not a human. You're your soul. You're your consciousness. You're who you really are. But here on Earth, we are that and then some. Like we're this vehicle at the same time.
Yes. In my book, I talk about that it is soul inside of us that is living this life. It is not this human being or this ego or all of the things that I could connect to myself or you connect to yourself. It's not that. It's the soul within us that is living this experience and connected to the source and returning the experience back to the source and giving to the source in the process of everyday being. And it doesn't matter what we are. It keeps going back to the source all day long and every second.
I think that that's part of the reason that maybe some of us, because one of the more recent NDEs I heard, he said what is familiar to me is that we write our own story with like a council of light beings before we incarnate. And in this particular story, his name was Adam Miller, and I do hope to have him on my show one day. He stated that when he got there, he died, he was 18. And when he got there, they said, you only wrote your story up until here. You can go back if you want to go back, but if you want to go back, you have to write the rest of your story. And and that kind of really hit me because when he said that, he goes, you write your whole story, including right now. And so that made me really put me in my place to right now. And so I was thinking, because he died 2 more times, right? So that means he wrote the story. And so I thought, well, maybe some of us wrote the story where we do choose to die for a minute so that we can gain like spiritual groundedness, so to speak, so that we could come back to the earth plane where we forget and remind people, like let's wake them up, let them know how limitless they are. Like almost like, these near-death experiences as humans is horrible because, like we stated before, nobody wants to die, but maybe we plan it so that, we help people wake up.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are we recording? Because I never did get the message. Okay.
Yes, we're recording.
It didn't come up, and I just thought, it did come. Okay. So, one of the things about being in this existence is that, as you've mentioned, that we have amnesia and we don't remember anything about it. But the other part is that being here, we need to have amnesia. We need to not remember past lives or to remember the in-between lives, because we wouldn't be able to function as a human being if we could remember the loving existence that we had and everything there. We wouldn't be human beings. We would be soul. And we are soul, but soul needs to immerse itself into this physical existence. Mm-hmm. And it can't do that with all that knowledge.
That really makes me think, because it seems like it's a goal of humans to have questions answered, like we're curious, we want to understand, we want to learn. Some of us want to grow from learning, but most of us are uncomfortable with uncertainty, and so we choose to learn. And you stated that if we chose to, we need to not know everything in order to be human. I find that hard to understand when we're on the search the entire time for who we really are, because my perspective so far is that we are a soul driving a human body.
Yes.
And maybe the goal is to teach the human race how to evolve to be more light being oriented.
I think we do go back to the source eventually, but I think after several thousand lifetimes.
Yeah. So on that note, I do believe that we are supposed to have amnesia to help with the experience. But I really kind of sort of feel like I don't like the term matrix, but I feel like we create a story where we're watching it, and it's like a video game. And when we wrote this story, before we came in, we have choices, free will, which is another commonality, I'm sure. Because that's what I've heard, is that we have free will.
Absolutely.
we maybe wrote the contract, but we could change it along the way, by our choices. And I feel like I put Easter eggs out there when I wrote my script of my life, because Easter eggs are when you leave little hints here and there. And when you find the Easter egg, you kind of get your mind blown, at the right exact time. So you can help, or for me at least, I feel like I did that so that I could evolve, but so that I could talk about it, because I'm fairly vocal, and help other people maybe crack open their Easter egg or find their Easter egg and wake up. So, it's really interesting. The thing it stinks is the fact that as humans, we feel so much, and that sometimes it takes tragedy, it takes tragedy to wake us up, unfortunately. So, no, I was going to ask you, how does that play out in some of your research?
Okay, so I do have a case where the mother, it was a woman, her name I think is Sharon. I think it was Sharon. Anyway, she was killed in a car accident, and she went to the other side, and she's in the spirit world, and she's supposed to stay there. And as you mentioned, we create our own experiences, and we pre-create where we're going to go in this life as well, certain things. And so within free will. So that's true too. Anyway, she died, but she fought and fought and fought to come back, because she just had a baby that was like 6 months old, and she wanted to raise her baby. But she had agreed when she had her precondition, one of the conditions was that her son would be raised by a stepmother, and that her husband and the family and all the people in her life would go through the experience of losing someone close. And so her fighting, she just over and over and over refused to stay dead. And no matter how much her guides worked and tried to get her to settle down and be a part of this beautiful, loving experience, she just would not accept it. And so finally, they just said, okay. And then I think it was actually the source came along and said, let her go. And we'll do it another time. And so that one woman coming back changed their life review, or their life expectation and story for all the people that was her death was supposed to attach.
Yeah, it's interesting that she did that, and it makes you wonder how that plays out for the other souls involved. But maybe if they aren't in agreement, maybe they choose to leave as well. Like maybe they don't.
I just to explain some of what happens there. So we do create an existence for our life that we plan it all out. First thing we do is we choose a goal that we want to accomplish here, and it's always for the benefit of the world, as well as for ourselves and our own growth. And so we choose a goal, and then we choose all the conditions in our lives that are going to help us to get to that goal. Now, we don't choose every single person. We don't choose that we ever see. We only choose the significant ones. The same with experience. All experiences are not meant to be. The ones that guide you in the direction of your goal, yes, that one's supposed to be, but not every experience ever happens. And then we choose ourselves, our race, our nationality, our economic level, our intelligence. I mean, we just choose everything right down to our baby toenail if it made us a significant difference in our getting our goal. So it can go right down to infinite detail. And then once we think we've got all the pieces put together, we come here with amnesia and live out this life and have our spirit within is guiding us and talking to us. And we also have guides. Okay, there are guides as well. So, but people can just ignore all of that. I mean, we know people who have just said, well, they go to work, they come home, they do nothing. They don't try. They don't, they don't challenge themselves. They just go to work and sit and watch TV at night. That's it.
I just think that, because I've heard it before more than one time, that when we come and have the amnesia, we don't realize when we're making our contract that it's going to be as hard as it is. And we don't realize, and we do fall fast asleep. And I think that that's why some of us chose to come back and be those people to wake them back up. Like some of us are here just to wake others up and help them remember a little bit enough so that they do stay on track. You know what I mean?
I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
I've lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm glad this is not live.
When you said that we choose everything in, down to the nitty gritty, it's interesting because I adopted my daughter, and I tell her all the time, you chose me. I tell her all the time, and she's, oh no, I didn't. You chose me. I'm all, nope. You chose me. And I really feel like she chose me. And she's, she does have her challenges, as we all do. But she's a unique soul. And I feel like she's right there in alignment to grow up to be a human very similar to me. So I really do feel like she chose me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, in your book, what are some of the...
I wanted to say about the plan. There is no time at the spirit level. So if we don't do one thing I do know about the goal is that it's written in blood almost, or stone. You don't get out of that. That's a contract that you've made, and you're going to fulfill it. And even if you come back 5 times, 5 different lifetimes, they're almost exactly the same. That's up to you,
So you're always trying to fulfill that. You come back until you finally fulfill your goal.
Yeah, until you finish your goal. But then you have a new life and a new goal. But yes, you must finish that goal. It doesn't matter what else.
Yeah.
So those people who don't do their goal in one lifetime, that's fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does make sense. In your book, the next step in near-death experience research, why did you add the next step? What made it the next step?
Well, because I take it deeper than anybody else. In my book, I go very, very deep into the answers to these deeper questions about why are we all here, and what is this all about, and those kind of questions. So that's where I go. I have found that with other researchers, they zero in on one area, usually physical, like it's usually doctors that are doing researches, not all, but
right.
Many doctors, and then they concentrate on one aspect. And I don't. I concentrate on the whole spiritual realm.
What was your biggest takeaway, or not only your biggest takeaway from your research, but maybe what was the most maybe eye-opening for you that really changed you?
Well, it was an eye-opening because I had an STE, it's a spiritually transformative experiences. So I had one of those, and during that I learned about oneness, and so I sort of knew about oneness, and but I didn't understand it, and so the death experiences and the near-death experiences that I read and researched, then they taught me that
about oneness.
Yeah, about oneness. Yeah, they put it together for me, and it was that thing that I told you about in the beginning, where people see the universe and know they're one with it, that they're connected to everything. And that's the oneness. And it goes on and on and on. And the bottom line of that is, and this fits with what you've asked me, is that we are source. We actually are source. We don't know that. But the soul that I'm talking about, that is source. We are source. And
exactly. And I actually had this conversation with a really dear friend yesterday. We went out to dinner together, and she's very spiritual in a Christian sense. And over the years, she shared with me some personal information that has went on in her life, and we were talking about that because it came to the opportunity for positive change. And we were talking about oneness, or we were talking about how I told her we are all God, because she uses the term God, and she referred to how I use the term universe. And I told her, well, the reason I use the term universe is because universe is all encompassing. When you think of universe, you think of everything. And when you think of God, it has that stigma of being a single soul that, oversees everything. I said, but from my life experience and from what I've learned and what feels right in my heart is that you can say God, but then you're saying that you are also God, and that I'm also God, and they're also God, and the plants and the trees and everything is source, which is God. So it's just a word, and she seemed to understand that. But I think that that's what basically oneness, and that's what a connected. So like when we come, like we were talking about a minute ago, how when we come in, we have the ego, and so we feel so separated from everybody, and when we are rejected, it's just so traumatizing to the soul because we want to be connected to our tribe. But we come from oneness. We come from where everything, and so when we're rejected, it's like death here as a human, and I feel like that rejection, divorce, separation, when you shut people out, when you disconnect, or when you are an avoidant, what you're doing is you're cutting a lifeline of all that you are. Like, it's like saying, by God, by universe, it's like you're cutting a very important piece of who you are away.
And from the spiritual perspective, that's just a learning experience.
Well, clearly, yes. But my point is that oneness needs to be more incorporated into our life.
Totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah. The world would be, and let me explain how I see oneness evolving or being. So if you imagine yourself this being that's got huge intelligence and is all love and in nothingness, and that's what the source or the God or whatever word, Allah or whatever other words you use, that's what it would be. It would just be this wonderful experience, knowledge and intelligence, and nothingness, blackness all around. So I think that I think that creation happens like in a nanosecond, because Source creates because it must. And it creates us, and it creates every single thing that we know, including outer space aliens. And the thing that's the oneness in that is the consciousness, the soul. The soul is one big, huge soul. It really is. And just as you were talking about, it's one huge, big soul, and we are all it. And not just, human beings are really small when you consider. Like if you see our world from Mars, it's like a little tiny dot, and this is only the next planet over. And so if you think about the universe, we are the universe. The universe is right here beside us. It isn't out there. It's everywhere. It's inside of us as well,
You said something about knowledge a minute ago, and you talked about, well, and I shared with you how, Adam Miller went and rewrote his life, but he also had the opportunity to be taken to a school or a college, so to speak, and learn more before he came back. And I've heard that a lot about how they get to go to a school and learn more and bring more information back. And what I am really beginning to understand as humans and our limitlessness and our openness to creativity, which is source. When we channel creativity, we're channeling source, that we have the power to go to those schools here if we can open our channel of creativity and channel of source enough that we can visualize and create that experience. So if we can get in the right state of mind and the right frequency and just the right peaceful place, we could go to those learning experiences, those learning places, and then create the reality that we want here in this here and now moment.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And did you get any of your did you learn any of that through the near-death experiences that you, or just over time, your consciousness growing?
No, that also was. As a matter of fact, when I learned about I have a bit of a backstory. When I was a child, I was assessed as mentally slow, and I was in grade 2 for 3 years, and then I managed to go on to other grades, but at the low level, I guess. I don't know. I don't even know if they had low stream. Anyway, so I didn't, I thought I was slow. And it wasn't until I was 31 that I found out that I was above average in intelligence and well above average. And so from that moment on, I challenged myself to learn and to, just what can I do and what can I learn? And, I'm like it just can't fill me enough.
Like a sponge.
Yeah. And so all of this is just a part of all of that. And I feel that we are here to be, to experience, we really are unkind to ourselves. But I think that is because past messages that have been passed on for centuries.
Yeah, the generational trauma.
Yeah. And then, not just generational, but also the church. I'm sorry, but not all churches, but some churches were, the guilt and you're not good enough, you're not good enough, that kind of thing. And that's so painful to somebody who's trying to be all that they can be. And so but we really are here to enjoy, to be, to experience, to just get ourselves right in there and experience it and be it. So,
and remember what it's like to be a child, because when we are born and we come in fresh and new and wanting to learn, we're so happy. We're so happy.
Yes.
And I really think we forget that even that part, even the childhood that is so important. And I'm at a stage in my life where I love being creative. Like I love all the silly, things that embarrasses even my own daughter at times. And she says, "No, Mom, stop." But I tell her, well, why? It makes me feel good. It's fun. I'm enjoying myself, and that's where I'm at, wanting to help other people remember what it's like to have genuine fun. That doesn't mean go party and drink or do,
that's
that. I'm talking about playing games with your friends and, and singing in the car and, being silly in the grocery store,
And challenge yourself to learn, what more can I do? Like for art, can you play around in art and find out that you really can draw? Or make something or create something. Yeah.
When you're a kid, it isn't about even being good at it. When you're a child, a kid, and you're doing art, it's about the process. It feels good to create. And we forget as we grow up, because we think we have to be perfect. We forget that it doesn't really matter how it comes out. It feels good to do it.
Yes, yes, exactly.
I want to recreate that experience for people. Art, nature, and spirituality, those are my passions. Like, I just could spend all day with kids and nature and art, and, but, I want adults to, start to embrace that child,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
remind the child inside of them.
yeah. And
Um,
there are, I think there used to be, I don't know if there still are, but workshops that
oh,
teach
yeah.
people to be. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a goal of mine as well. My happy place was camp as a kid, and not as a kid, but as a camp counselor. I was a teen, and teens, we go through challenges. That's a really hard, age to be at as a teenager. And I felt so blessed to be working with children who are still innocent as a teen, and we got to act like kids. And so recently, I was talking with some friends about manifestation, and reaching your goals, and like, what does it take? Because kids, teens, young adults this day, they're manifesting a lot really quickly, really easily. And I was like, I wonder what it is, that how is it that they're doing it? And what I came to the conclusion was, is they're all doing something they're passionate about. And so, well, what makes me happy? What am I passionate about? I know I love art. I know I love, children. I know I love nature. And then I was like, well, the best job I ever had was a camp counselor, you know? And I would love to recreate that for other adults so that they can remember what that feels like. So maybe someday, you know,
yeah,
so so on that note, with the near death, experience, did you follow up with any of them, like,
yeah,
after they went and they were on the other side and they had the
yeah, yeah.
experience and they got that back,
Yeah,
like, how did it change their lives?
yeah, I did. I followed up with a few. I didn't, I think, well, I made friends with a couple, but I didn't stay friends with very many. Well, because I have such a crazy life myself,
Oh,
you know.
don't we
Um,
all?
yeah. So, but, and I, yeah, so we get together every once in a while, but it's just maybe every 6 months or so.
Did you learn, though, like, what any of them, when we pass over and we come back, and if we have that experience that really changes us when we're here and now because we recalled it, like, what types of changes did you or did they notice, or what was the most common change when they came back?
The biggest change, there's two or three, but the biggest change in relationship to the world is that they came back more caring and more wanting to do what's best for the world and for others and help in their kindness and that. And I actually think that death people who have had near death experiences are changing the world with their information because
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And that's one of the big things. The other big thing is that it was very difficult for many of them because they didn't want to be here. Most people, there were about 10, 15% who agreed that, yeah, they had to come back, for whatever reasons. But the rest of them did not want to come back and were pushed back, whether
Oh,
they wanted.
really?
And that was very, very hard for them. And so, unfortunately for them, the yeah, that was one of the things that happened is that
I
they,
haven't heard enough of those stories but maybe it's because they're not talking about it because they didn't want to come back in the first place. But the ones that do talk about it, maybe they saw that that was something they needed to do to
I
help.
did.
Like,
I gave a talk once at actually a spiritualist church. After the talk, a woman came up to me and said, "I'm just marking time. I'm just here. I'm existing." She wasn't even working towards her goal. Like she was here because she had to be because she couldn't die, but she did not want to be here, and she was very unhappy. I felt so sad for her.
yeah, but everything, it happened for a reason. She needed to be here. They probably
Yeah,
knew that, she, and
Everything,
just, yeah,
yeah,
everything
everything
happens.
doesn't happen for a reason.
You
Everything
don't think so?
doesn't. No, 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 no.
Really?
Some things happen for a reason. Some things do, but not everything. We have free will.
But wouldn't free will mean, wouldn't we be intentional with our free will? So like if I intentionally am creating my reality, then I'm creating it for a reason, right?
You're doing it for a reason to be, like I said before, be experienced, to live life. But if everything was all already planned and figured out, there would be no reason to enjoy. No, everything is meant to be. You see a child being abused or something, don't do anything because it's already meant to be. I just can't accept that kind of thinking. It's up to
Yeah,
us to step in and do something.
I guess because I've studied a lot of Tibetan Buddhism, and it does resonate with me in the sense that the meaning of compassion is that we recognize the value in every experience, and we don't necessarily need to take on
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
energy of it,
Yes.
and so
Yes.
I'm not saying to not step in when you see harm being done to another, but I don't believe that when somebody, tells me of a horrific experience or I see it on the news that I need to feel the energy of the tragedy of what's happening, but then in turn, I'm supposed to do the opposite and send the positive energy to the negative experience to help it, have light and expand and grow. That's what I believe compassion to be. So, I think that you gave me a lot to think about because I'm not sure how I feel about.
Yeah. Good. That's good. I mean, you don't have to agree with nobody. All of your audience. If you don't believe what I'm saying, that's fine with me. It's
Yeah,
just maybe things to think about and to consider, and yeah,
I
maybe.
think that's important. That there's, it really. It's okay if it doesn't feel okay in the moment. It might feel okay later down the road, or it
Yeah,
might never. Or but being open to hearing it is the most important part, in my opinion.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, sure.
yeah. So I guess, this book sounds really interesting. I definitely, I want to look into it for sure. So the way it's written, is it story based? Do you share the stories or do you share the research, or how is your data
Yeah,
written?
I go by. Okay, excuse me. I hope that got it. Um, I go by the learning that I gained, and so I talk about a kind of learning, like for example, responsibility and freedom, which is what we were just talking about. So I talk about that. I give my blurb, and then I give statements that people have said that fit. So
So
you
you
get both
share what you
ideas
learned.
and people's, yeah, and also people's stories, both.
Okay, yeah. So you share what you've learned, and then you use the stories to back up where you gained the
That's
knowledge.
exactly. Yeah.
You know what? I want to thank you so much for being on. How can people find you? Where do they find this book?
Okay, my book is Beyond NDEs, and the next step in near death experience research, and it's on Amazon and
And
probably and the distributors that Amazon distributes to. So that's one place it is where they can find me. I have a website, and it's near death. It's lynnKrussell.com. So super easy, but just don't forget the K because you won't find me otherwise.
LynnKRussell.com. Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
you know what? I'm gonna let everybody know about your book, and I hope the listeners, look more into it as well. And thank you so much for being on today. And
you're welcome.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries. And actually, if they just Google my name, Lynn K. Russell, they've got a whole pile of stuff there. So you'll
No
find
problem.
me.
I'll put it in the show notes for sure.
Okay.